Good morning, Tahira. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm glad to be on the phone with you, really,
Me
honestly.
too.
I feel like months have gone by and it's weird because I feel like when we reconnect, I'm like, oh, wow, she's so smart. I want to talk to her more.
I feel like I can just talk to you for hours and hours, and there's never enough time in the day. But I always love our conversations and appreciate you having me.
Oh, and one day it'll be a drink in person. I'm sure of it.
For sure. We're
Or
long overdue.
maybe, exactly, or maybe CBD.
Yeah, probably both.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's the best combination these days.
Exactly.
So, anyways, for all of our viewers out there, I want to welcome Tahira Rehmatullah, who is the co founder and CEO of Commons, which is a growing CBD brand and company that everybody needs to try because it has actually changed my life, to be honest with you. So,
Wow. Tell me more.
yeah, I'll tell you all about it. Yeah. So it's funny. Tahira and her co founder, Pat, and I have been speaking for, I don't know, we've been friends for 3 months or so, something
At
like
least a
that. Yeah.
lifetime.
Maybe, I don't know, it just keeps going on. But we're lucky to have met one another through, frankly, LinkedIn. So when
Mhm.
we talk about the power of social networks or social media, this is just one other extension of how new relationships and opportunities come to life.
Yep.
So, welcome to the call. And what I'd love to do is first start, like I do with everybody, is kind of hearing a little bit about your background and how did you come to launch a CBD company? Because you do have some background. I mean, you definitely have startup background, but like, why CBD now?
Sure. So taking it way back, I grew up in a small town in Ohio. My parents are from Pakistan, so come from a pretty traditional South Asian background, and then based in small town Ohio. So don't know how I necessarily thought it was a clear path to come to like cannabis and CBD, but here we are. I Before I got started in this space, I worked in more traditional finance. So went to Ohio State and then came to New York and started working in finance and at Ernst Young and then a hedge fund. And really what I started to realize working at those companies, and they were great companies, but I was really trying to figure out how do I combine more mission oriented work with what's happening in the private sector. And this was a little bit before the concept of like impact investing or focus on ESG really existed, and definitely well before like kind of the health and wellness boom. And so it was just kind of like poking around in the dark, really. And I went to business school at Yale. And while I was there, my grandfather, my mother's father, was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer.
Mm.
And so he was living with my parents at the time in Ohio. And my mother, as I think most people do when somebody is sick in their life, they're trying to find solutions. And she was looking everywhere, and she kept, funnily enough, coming across cannabis when in her late night Google searches. And one day she texted my younger sister and I, and all she said was, "Do you know where to get marijuana?" And my little sister immediately called me and she was like, "Do you think this is a test?" And I was like, "I don't know what mom is up to, but let's find out." And just it was a really eye-opening, I think, experience for me. And just my parents are devout Muslims, and cannabis has never been a part of our life, but they do believe in homeopathic medicine, and so natural remedies have always been a part of our upbringing. But certainly not cannabis and thinking about CBD. And so I started doing my own research and just learning much more about how cannabis and hemp had been helping people in a variety of capacities for ages, centuries, right? But because of the way the drug laws have been written here, and the impact of the war on drugs, it's been made kind of this taboo product. And this is 2013. So this is long before, not that long before, but early days of the changing of the market. And at that time, I did not know that there was a legal job to be had in the cannabis industry, but I knew I cared, and it was something that I felt very strongly about. We weren't able to get my grandfather anything living in Ohio for his cancer treatment. And, he had a pretty aggressive battle that lasted about 6 months. And after he passed away, an opportunity just kind of fell in my lap that was from alumni of my program who'd started a business that really became the first private equity company to focus exclusively on cannabis. And I thought, well, this is pretty fortuitous. This is a sign. And if I'm going to do something like this, now is the time to do it. And, you know, my litmus test is my parents. So I turned to them when I got the intro, and I was like, what do you guys think? Fully expecting them to say, absolutely not. That's ridiculous. Exactly. And just given the experience we just gone through, and, you know, when you see something like that, you just want to find something that makes people feel better. You know, you just want yourself, people in your life, you know, and I think about too, like, I wish I could have just found something to help my mom as the caretaker of my grandfather, you know, and it's this trickle down effect. It's like, it impacts everybody in your world, and you just want to make people feel better. And so I finally found an area that I was like, this can actually help people. And I want to be a part of it. So I took the job, and I was like, well, this could be the shortest job I ever have, but it'll be a fun little experiment.
You took the opportunity because you wanted
to. Exactly. Or, you know, I could be at the beginning of an industry, and 7 years later, here I am. So leading up to the brand, I've been on a lot of sides of the industry. On the investment side, I've built and launched a brand before. On the THC side, have just had a lot of activity with brands and businesses. And I think the thing that I kept noticing was, as the market got bigger and bigger, and, you know, supposedly there was more access, I found it still wasn't delivering kind of the ultimate service to people, and like education and helping people understand all the nuances. You know, we don't have the benefit of having this bank of science that, like, clinical trials. It's not like Advil, where it's like, take 2 if you're over the age of 12 and call me in the morning. We're just not there yet. We will be someday, but it's going to take time. And so right now we lean a lot on anecdotal information and stories that people share with their own experience. And I've met so many people who have been impacted positively by cannabinoids. Like, their days have been changed. And it's not for everybody. You know, some people are like, it's snake oil. And I'm not saying that it is a cure-all for anything, but I cannot, you know, tell enough stories about how it's changed people's lives, or just helped with things like sleep and pain and anxiety. And I wanted to see more of that. And I also thought about who's actually talking to, you know, a broader audience, like who's talking to my mother, who is trying to engage with people who are on the coasts, aren't looking for luxury. They just want that point of accessibility. And then also thinking about Black and brown communities. You know, cannabis and CBD has very traditionally been with Black and brown communities, and now they're very much being shut out of this industry. And that is a huge problem. And I wanted to try to do something about it. So how do you think about creating a brand that actually gives people more opportunity, and not just a small group of people? How do you give more people opportunity? And just, you know, over the years, kept accumulating this information. And then one day, and I think this is where the channel for direct sales really clicked with me, because it wasn't something I was that familiar with. My mom called me one day, and this was in 2018, and she said, "Hey, have you heard of CBD?" And I was like, "Mother, are you kidding me? Do you not listen to me when I talk ever?" You know, at that point, I'd been in cannabis. Yeah, the answer is definitely no. And I can't blame her. I just rattle on at her all the time. But at that point, I'd been in the space for about 4 years. And what had happened was that her friend, who is an Indian woman, one of my mom's closest friends, also lives in Ohio, owns convenience stores, and she kept getting asked about CBD by her customers. And so she's a very crafty woman. She found a wholesaler, started stocking it, and could not keep it on the shelves. And so one day she tried it, and she has back pain, as does my mother. And she took it for about a week, and she was starting to feel some relief. And she was like, this is a lot better than me taking 2 to 4 Advil every day. And so she suggested my mom take it. My mom tried it because her friend suggested it to her. And then my mom was starting to feel better too. And she was like, what is this stuff? So she calls me, and I was like, how dare you try CBD without talking to me? Like, what kind of, you know, what's the brand? Where does it come from? And she was like, I actually don't know. Like, this is what she gave me. And so that really made me understand a lot more about the power of person to person in a, you know, in this environment. Obviously, there's a lot of like influencer marketing and those opportunities, but you can't beat that recommendation from somebody that you know and trust. And it's really just taking that concept of, like, I'm sure you're the same way. When we find something that makes us feel good or that has helped somebody else, we want to tell everybody. We want everybody to benefit from it. And so Commons is really built on that. And when Pat and I met at the end of 2019, he was coming out of a CBD business that he'd previously worked on. I had several years under my belt in the industry, kind of navigating the ins and out of this very new industry that was forming. And I wanted to create a concept like this. And he and I really aligned on our values and what we wanted, who we wanted to talk to. And the point was accessibility and education. How do we create that in a business and a brand and create more opportunity? And, opportunity, there's financial opportunity, there's opportunity to improve your health. And there's this opportunity to learn. And so fast forward, here we are. Commons is our little baby that we're putting out into the world, and excited to see where it goes.
Yeah. Well, what I would say to you, I'm going to add something into that. So it's a beautiful story, and it's a testament to who, frankly, both of you are. But it's interesting because one thing you don't mention, and it is about service, because I actually think you're somebody at your core that is like super in service of others. And that was one of it started with your grandfather, but really it's about opening up this gift to all these people, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that what's the point of being here if we're not helping others and trying to make everybody have a piece of success or opportunity or of happiness, whatever that looks like to people. And I think that for me, it comes very much from my parents. Like, my parents are always the first people to help people. And I just saw that my whole life. And my father's a physician, so there's this caring element just in being that. And my mother is just, I think, the kindest person in the world and always wants to be in service to each other. And I obviously initially went that finance route, but I always knew that I cared about that. I just didn't know what that looked like. What does that look like in work and a job and a career? And I think over time, with experience, you just learn so much more about what do you value and how can you put it into practice. And just thankful that, other people also believed in this concept. And, we're still young and small, but we think that we start to hear the stories. I mean, like you said, the products, you like the products, they've had an impact on you. When we hear stories from people about they've gotten the best night of sleep that they haven't had that type of sleep in years, and what a difference that makes. Because I think the bigger thing too, and this is something that I'm guilty of, is I've had chronic pain for years, and the impact that your physical has on your mental health, it's all intertwined, right? And
Yes.
I think it's hard to figure out, well, what do I tackle first? Do I need to be in therapy? Do I need to sleep more? How do I deal with my physical pain? And I think we want to try to work with all of that, because even if there's an element of, okay, CBD this one product doesn't necessarily work for me. Well, we have an assortment, and over time we'd like to continue to add other cannabinoids and eventually get to THC as well. But it's a building process because we want people to feel like they're learning and understanding, and have a community of people that they can talk to if they do have questions.
Yeah, it's almost like a steps and stages, especially when you're first, like you mentioned the word education early on. And I feel like even for me, who was a CBD user prior to actually meeting the two of you, it's an education process of, well, what's the difference between a sublingual and what does this dosage mean? And versus like a topical, and why would I use this? And I think that's something that you guys are trying to tackle with the accessibility of what you guys call your consultants or coaches that basically help guide the consumer toward making the appropriate purchase for themselves. So I think that human to human contact that you're talking about and building that relationship, there's the trust there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if people can't trust us, then there's no winning. There's no business to be had, So it's not about ultimately people buying products. It's about people having an impact, feeling some kind of an impact from either our products or something else that maybe has come through the network or the people that we're talking to, And again, it never is one thing that solves everything for whatever you're dealing with, right? There's so many pieces, but if you can provide even one piece to start that, because I mean, it's hard, right? Like I had been dealing with my chronic pain for so long, and then it just became part of my life.
Mhm.
And
You just sort
you
of feel like
adjust
you're
to it.
supposed to tolerate it, you know?
Exactly, exactly. And it's like, no, you shouldn't tolerate it. You know,
Mhm.
why do you feel like you have to live that way? And I know so many people who, in a variety of things that they're dealing with, it just becomes part of their day to day, and it shouldn't have to be, so people who just aren't sleeping well, they're like, well, I've just gotten used to it. It's like, no, that's not the answer. Or thinking, how do you make the most out of each and every day? And I think that's where Commons wants to focus, like, how do we make your days better, even if it's just incremental? And that's how we view the business too. It's like, we'll need to change over time. We're young, we're growing. And I think even for mature businesses, there's always this incremental change that has to happen.
Always
You
have
should
to.
always be evaluating yourself. Nobody's just nailed it all the time. Maybe some
And by
companies
the
have,
way,
but
just when you think you've nailed it, you actually realize that it's time for you to shift because somebody else has come into the marketplace. So you can never be
exactly,
comfortable. So
never. And I think that that's just a philosophy of the business too, is that we always have to be listening to people. We have to understand too, what do people want, what do they need, and how do we incorporate that into the products that we're developing. Right now we have 10 SKUs. We'll obviously grow that over time, but we very much want to base that on, what do people like? Is it more dosage? Is it a different format? What are they trying to serve as well? So one area that we are heavily focused on developing right now are products for women, kind of throughout their
yeah,
cycles. So from
Lord knows they
cramps
need 'em.
to eventually, what did you say?
I said, Lord knows they need them. I've got a lot of
They,
consumers for you.
yeah, and we've tested some products like topical patches, and just hearing the impact that's had on women who've been suffering from cramps for years, and you just get used to it, and you have to do it every month. But what if there was something that could help with that? And a lot of people don't want to keep taking over the counter or have prescription medications or be on birth control to control for a lot of those elements. And so how do we introduce safe natural products that can help with that? And then thinking about just the course of a woman's life as menopause as well, the things that you're dealing with. There's so many studies that have started to happen around feminine health and cannabinoids. And so we're looking at the different products that we can introduce there. And then when you also think about things like recovery, so sports recovery, but even like, I mean, I get to Friday and I'm like, I feel like I need to recover from my week.
As if,
And
as
so
if you're like, I need a drink, but not a drink. I actually need something
exactly.
to de-stress.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
when you think about stressed parents who are just, they can't always, many people don't drink, but the ones that do, you can't, it's not like you can have a bottle of wine in the middle of the day. You want to be able to be functional. You want to be able to drive. You want to be with your family. You want to be present. So what are things that we can introduce to help with that? So we're started looking at combination products as well. And some of the new gummies that we introduced, we have one that's meant for daytime that has some caffeine and B12 in it to kind of give you that extra boost as well in a fun way. A little pep, exactly. And then for a lot of people, caffeine can be too much. So combining with CBD levels it out. I'm a heavy caffeine consumer and I don't feel the jitters, but Pat feels jitters when he has caffeine. And so the combination of CBD has really been helpful. And then we have another product that's CBD and melatonin. And so helping, for a lot of people, when you take melatonin, and I'm one of those people, it makes me groggy the next day. It just kind of has like that lingering effect. But
Yeah.
with exactly. But with CBD, the combination, it's like, I don't have that the next morning. And so, just trying to find those products that we can hone in on more to help people, from a more functional basis. And when you think about it from that lens, what somebody at the age of 25 is dealing with could be similar to what somebody at 75 is dealing with. Is it sleep? Is it pain? Are you stressed? Or are you just trying to like improve your day a little bit? I mean, we take vitamins all the time. And you're not expecting this immediate result from taking your vitamin every day, but over time you expect that it's going to help your system. And we look at CBD that way too. I take it as a daily supplement for inflammation, and I feel a difference.
And let's face it, like one of the major things that most people are trying to combat is bringing their inflammation down so that they can actually live more stably and a healthy life. So that's so my question for you is like, on a day-to-day basis, like you're running this company, right? And as we talked about before we got on the call, you have multiple hats that you're wearing. Um, and really tapping into a lot of different expertises. So how does that work for you? I mean, I know that CBD is going to help kind of stabilize you and keep you calm, but like, what's the one thing every day that you tap into that without fail, helps you get through this? Because let's face it, any startup, no matter if you have funding or not, is stressful.
Definitely. So I can't say that I tap into it every single day. I'm trying to get better about it, but I'm trying to start my days with meditation in a much more focused way. And I did it frequently before, and I feel like, you're training yourself. You really do have to train yourself. And this sounds ridiculous to say, but I'm a bad breather. It turns out that I don't take very deep breaths, and I kind of will just go throughout my day and not think about it. So I try to spend time thinking about that, going through I do guided meditations. I'm not the expert level yet where I can do it without one, but I have to say that those help. At least kind of helps for that start of your day, and then come what may, things happen all over the place.
Part of you bringing up the awareness around tapping into your breath, because I think that's the biggest part about meditation, right? Is being able to have a cognizance around the depth of your breath.
Yeah.
And are you mindfully breathing, or are you, like so many of us, hold our breath, particularly during decision making or stressful situations, that kind of thing? Yes.
Yeah, it's the amount of times I've been, I was in physical therapy for a while, and my physical therapist would be like, breathe, you're like holding your breath. And I'm not realizing I'm doing that, but I'm doing that, I'm sure, throughout the day, or not taking deeper breaths, which then obviously help with your heart rate. And, I have a naturally high heart rate all the time. And so I look at tools, like I have an Apple Watch. Pat has a Whoop band that he wears. And, we track these types of things. And we also try to track how does CBD impact it. So when we're looking at our sleep, how restless are we? Are we able to kind of sleep through the night? I mean, the other piece of it, and again, I'm telling people things that they know, but like hydration, just thinking about how much of an impact that has on you. And so I've tried to be
when you're
better.
running from meeting to meeting, it's difficult to remember your hydration. I mean,
definitely.
You get to the end of the day and you're like, wait, how much did I have my liter or whatever it is?
Yeah.
We're supposed to drink half water in our body weight. I mean, sometimes it's difficult. So
definitely, and these are things that everybody knows. A lot of people try to tackle. There are lots of great tools out there, but just, I think, the combination of things, and it's a little bit of trial and error too. Meditation's not for everybody. There are elements that are just, it's not a one size fits all, but I try to introduce these elements in my day and be better about being structured about that, and getting to a point where if I don't do it, it's very obvious that I haven't done it, right? Like there's a point of it that I need to check the box myself to know that that's how I'm going to start my day. And I think just trying to be more intentional about that. And we can always make excuses for, I don't have time for this. And it's like, really, I have to tell myself this, like, you don't have 10 minutes to spend time.
Time is an excuse.
Always. Yeah.
The coach in me is going to tell you. So, but tell me a little bit about some of the qualities that you think are super important to being an entrepreneur.
I think there are, you have to be able to continue to see the big picture, but then I think that there's also this element of being able to be very detailed. And those are often things that are at conflict with each other. Those are things that probably, that's elements that I'm actually good at, is like, here's the big picture, but like, let's get into the details, like go into the weeds, for lack of better words. And I think an entrepreneur who can do that, like be able to kind of flex between those two areas, can be very, very successful. There's also, you have to be very flexible. There's no way that whatever plan you set, that is how it's going to play out. There's just no way. And so things will constantly, I know, shocking. But I think we all set plans. And for an entrepreneur, we all say like, I'm flexible, I can roll with the punches, but you have to make quick decisions, and you don't have to, it doesn't always have to be like this very methodical analysis. And I have a finance background, like I'm used to doing analysis. I like to have all the information.
That's probably pretty tough as an MBA.
Yes and no, because I think part of that skill set that you develop too is, do you have the right enough information to be able to make a decision?
Confident enough to move forward. Yeah.
And developing your own confidence, I think over time too, is that, okay, we have 60% of the information, probably we have to make a decision. And I think also setting yourself up that way too is like, don't create your own barriers. You have to, your job too. And for someone like me, who's the CEO, it's like, I have to help remove barriers for people. We'll have to keep people moving. And, one example is that we found out last week that we printed all these products, all the packaging, the labels, and the barcode's wrong. When you scan it, it's the wrong product.
Yes.
And it was something that we didn't catch in our design QC. It's a really hard thing to catch. The numbers were right, but the actual barcode wasn't.
That was when back in the day when they didn't have barcodes, it could have been a much easier solution.
Definitely. And so, we just had to say, I said, okay, well, we're going to do stickers, and we're going to write a sorry note to everybody and say, this is not ideal, but stuff happens. And the other option is that you go through the whole thing and reprint everything, which would be ridiculous cost and time lost. And I was like, the team just said, okay, this is what we're going to do. How do we fix this? And that's the solution, and something that you have to do quickly and just put into action. And are there other methods? Probably, but you just have to pick the right ones in those moments to keep moving forward. And I think that entrepreneurs have to be able to think in long-term decisions as well, but also the quick, short decisions. And so again, it comes like that flexibility. I think there's also an element of, you have to develop trust for the people who are going to work with you and follow your vision. And that's not easy, but great entrepreneurs, they can sell the story. It's personal for so many people and what they're trying to do and why they're trying to do it. And tapping into that it's like that connection point. Really successful entrepreneurs, they connect with people in a way that they're like, yeah, I want to do that. I care about that too. And it's not a one-time thing. It has to be ongoing. It has to be a real relationship. And I think that, like you're a relationship person. You know how to engage with people, and it matters to you. And you can tell that it really matters to you. And I think that for people who it truly matters to, they become successful entrepreneurs because people want to work with them, and we should never neglect the value, again, of like the person to person. At any point in a company, I get it that they can get really big, but you should know everybody's name. You should know what everybody is doing and just have that connectivity. And I think if you can maintain, those various elements, then the rest is easy. Yeah. At least I hope.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think the thing is that when you talk about connectivity, and I mean, it's a beautiful testament to who you are as a business owner, that you care. I mean, yes, your company's still small, but that you care to know what each person does. Because, I often talk about a process for myself of when I used to come into companies, and I give this as guidance often to people that I have coached. When they come in and they're overwhelmed and there's no training, right? And that is true entrepreneurship. There's no training. But the more you can understand someone else's strengths and also what they do for a living, so that you know how it fits in with your role, right?
Yeah.
The better it's going to be for you, because that's a true interaction, is this equitability between each person, right?
Yeah. And I think, an entrepreneur, and I think any type really leader of a business, being able to understand what people are good at and not good at, including yourself. I know that there are certain things that I am not good at. My job is to find smarter people than me.
Definitely.
To do what they're very good at, and let them do what they're good at. Don't micromanage, don't get in their way. I will give my opinion, but I don't know everything. When I think about elements of commons, it's like when 9 out of 10 people feel very strongly about something, and I'm that one person who's like, I don't really like that color. who cares, right? The people have spoken. And I think that we have to think in that mindset too. And again, I think it's a constant evaluation where you're thinking about, am I still good at this? Is this what we said a year ago that we played out has that played out well? Do we need to readjust? And I think Pat and I both think in that mentality where you're again constantly evaluating, but then also observing. Are people happy? Are they overwhelmed? Is it too much? Is it too little? And just knowing that in people, because for someone who's an executive and a leader, your job is to make all the pieces fit together at the end of the day. And I think that understanding people and what motivates them, what demotivates them, how are you setting people up for success? That's the most important thing at the end of the day.
And particularly in your business where it's direct to consumer, it is powered by people.
Yeah, so exactly.
If you have two people at the top that don't understand the human connection.
People.
Yes,
yeah.
Then, I mean, what is it based on? Just because you saw a business opportunity that direct selling is growing? No, that's not going to be enough, right?
Yeah.
So tell me, when you started your career more on the finance side of it and worked at an investment firm, I mean, it's primarily male driven. Am I wrong?
Okay. You're definitely right.
That's right. I actually was just saying somebody recently, I'm like, I think I would have been really good if I would have been an investment banker or in a male driven industry. And they're like, why didn't you do it? And I said, oh, I don't know. I don't like finance that much.
So that'll do it.
That will definitely do it. I'm like, I have a stellar analyst that would be with me for a while, and that would have helped. But, anyways, I want to hear a little bit about working in that type of environment, because if I'm not mistaken, you currently, even in the CBD industry, with product development and formulation and frankly, probably operationally, it's very male driven still. Am I wrong?
Yeah, it's a combination. I mean, I'm proud to say that we have really focused on that element with Commons. And of course, we're a very small team, but we're predominantly women. And I, thinking about how, thank you. And, we're also thinking about how are you very intentional about diversity and, what does diversity even mean to you? I mean, me as a Pakistani American woman, that's the lens that I look through often, right? This is just what I do genuinely care about it. And I think that just the differences in styles and opinion can have such a wonderful impact on a business. But beyond that too, it's, we're really trying to talk to a field of people who are from different walks of life and have different backgrounds. And you have to reflect that too in Absolutely. Who works here and who's planning for them. Thinking about some, I think the male dominated environments that I worked in, I didn't mind it by any means. It was just more of that's what it was. And coming into this business, cannabis and CBD is heavily male. It's I laugh because a lot of people that I thought I left behind in my previous finance life now work in this industry, and I'm like, oh come on, I thought we were moving on from this. Yeah, but people go where the opportunity is, and so I understand that. And so it's a balance, but we also try to seek out, a lot of actually our own advisors are predominantly women. We have this amazing woman who's a physician who's been practicing cannabinoid medicine for decades, and there aren't that many of her, of her profile as well. And you have to seek those out. And so when you think of manufacturing or product development, we're seeking out those vendors and partners who are females or non-white backgrounds, because we also want to be able to give opportunity there as well. And sometimes the biggest element that you're not able to jumpstart at the beginning is just that element of capital, and that comes, unfortunately, it's kind of been segmented more in certain populations. And so how do you kind of make everything more equitable? And that's what Commons is about, and it's what we want to see reflected throughout the business. So supply chain, the people, both internal and external, I think it's an important thing, but it's not easy. I mean, even when you think about recruiting, it takes work to be able to find a pool of candidates where you have a couple of people who are minorities. You know,
I agree.
it's the way that works. So you really have to be intentional and put real effort into it. But I think that the time that it takes you to do that is well worth the impact that it has on yourself, on the business, and on the person as well. You know, I think that there's just so much value to be derived from that. But you know this space so well, and it's just, you have to navigate through those pieces.
Yeah, I think that that's actually what builds great company culture, is that when there's obviously not sameness, and I know that you and I connect on that. And you know, for me, I've always looked for diversity on whatever level that is, whether that be socioeconomically or whether that be, you know, culturally. And I think it's so cool to look at probably either of our portfolios of friends, even for that matter. And there's not a type. It's just,
Yeah.
maybe the common ground for either of us might be curiosity or active learner, or you know, but it's important, as anyone sees a company grow, is to pull from so many different methods and modalities for that. So I honor you that you really take a look at that from that lens. So I just have a few more questions for you.
Sure.
You know, as you know, we could be here all day. One of the most important things, and you mentioned it actually earlier around you and Pat and how you developed your relationship. So many people actually don't think that way. And that's something, one of the first times I've actually heard you speak of it, but you talked about values. And so I'd love to know a little bit about your values. Like if you were to actually take 5 of your top core values, what would you say they would be? What drives you every day to make choices?
So I think, let's see, 5. Yeah, I'll try to limit it. Yeah, just keep going. You know, I think there's a big element of just inclusivity. I think one point, how you mentioned curiosity, there's no status quo. You know, you have to, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, but kind of question everything. Why not? You know, what are we gaining by just kind of doing what everybody else is doing? I think trust is incredibly important, and thinking about how you both receive and give trust. You know, what's that integrity kind of wrapped in that, and operating always at that level or as close to. I mean, we all kind of have our downfalls at various points of the day. I know I can be cranky sometimes, but always just maintaining that level, because at the end of the day, I think if you don't have trust, then and that value element of integrity, then what do you have?
Relationship based on?
Exactly. And then I think there's this, sorry?
Or what's the foundation? You know?
Yeah, exactly. And then I think one element is levity, humor. You know, I like to laugh. I can be very serious, you know, when I'm in kind of business mode, but those closest to me know that I love jokes and love, you know, just being light and easy with people. And, you know, that part of it, if you don't have that in your day, then why are we here? You want to try to enjoy, and I think give that to other people as well. So I think that's always very important to me. And I think that I have to remind myself that too, because I'll get into kind of like business mode and wanting to make sure, you know, so there's a balance. And so I guess that last value is just thinking about balance. How do you keep yourself balanced? How do you keep those around you? Because I think we contribute to so much of like the energy that you're bringing to other people, what you're putting out there, what you're absorbing. And that balance, it's hard. I find myself needing to reset throughout the day, let alone thinking about what you're going through in your weeks and months, and wanting to also have that positive impact, I think, on other people. You know, nothing makes me feel worse than when somebody else is not content or happy in something. And I just want to problem solve. And I think that that's probably an element that Pat and I both care about behind Commons, is like, we want to help people. We want people to feel good and balanced. And
element again.
Yeah. So I guess service is in there too.
I love it. Well, I love those. And it's funny that you brought up trust, because I was going to say, that was one for me that I know is a big deal for you. Just having listened to you in our conversations through the months, and as our relationship has continued to grow, and I agree. I think integrity in any relationship and being able to count on that is a big deal.
Mhm.
So I honor that. So I do want our listeners and viewers to have a way to know how to get involved with Commons, how to try your products, how to, this is an opportunity if they wanted to actually become a coach or a consultant for an amazing growing company. That is something they can do. So can you talk to them a little bit about the opportunity to get involved and where to
Yeah,
find your products and shop?
of course. So you can start with our website, commons.co. All products are available there. We'll ship them right out to you. There's also the opportunity there to join as a coach. You just kind of navigate your way through there. It's pretty straightforward. And then we're also on Instagram, so commons_co. And then once you do become a coach, there's also the opportunity where we have another Instagram that's just for coaches, where we do a lot of education and kind of posting about products and answer Q&A. And we have a lot of we have weekly Zooms that we also do just for people to tune in and ask questions. So you don't have to be a coach in order to join those. We're happy to have you involved. If at any point people have questions, you can email us at founders@commons.co. That goes to me and Pat. And we love to hear from people. We do a lot of the Q&A, most of it at this point ourselves, and still really want to engage with people and understand what they're looking for. What are they trying to treat or deal with or solve for? And then find us on LinkedIn too. We're still very young on there, but you can just find Commons and reach out any way. But products, I have all the recommendations, but what we always say for people who are not CBD consumers or are wanting to try it, is start low and build up from there. We have a pretty big range of different types of products. So if there are any questions on should I take a sublingual? Should I take a topical? Should I take an ingestible? We have a great team here who can answer all your questions. So feel free to reach out.
I'm a huge fan of the gummies. And they taste really good with not a lot of
Thank you.
taste. And I know that's not easy to formulate, so I really value that.
Thank
And
you.
the topical is really good for those who have a lot of aches and pains from working out a lot. And the other thing that I had never tried before using your brand was lingual. And
Yeah.
it reminded me a little bit of you take the Listerine tab or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Very easy and seamless. So really great products, and I can't recommend them more highly. And I just want to thank you for your time and sharing invaluable information. Really, there's a lot of things that you talked about, not only just from your own experiences, but just your brand, like where the inception came from, why, your why is very clear. So thank you for your time, Tahira. And I look forward to more fun and interaction with the Commons brand.
Thank you, Michelle. I really appreciate you having me, and I'm excited to just keep chatting away with you when we get the chance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, everybody tune into Opportunity Knocks on both Apple and Spotify. Every week we feature different female entrepreneurs on just that, opportunities, how to take, make, create, and evaluate opportunities. We all have them. They're in front of us. It's just whether or not we take them. Have a great day.